what the public sees. The layer most fans stay glued to is the one full of jaw-dropping stats, flashy moments, and the chaos of trending trades. It's the front-facing version of the NBA, like a window display with nothing but the brightest lights and loudest headline. This is where player narratives are built or buried, based not on how someone sets a screen or rotates in defense, but on how many points they drop and whether they looked cool doing it. That's why someone like Shai, who averaged over 32 points a game, isn't just an MVP winner, he's become a storyline. His name's everywhere, and you don't even need to watch games to know that. You've seen the posts, the graphics, the comments. That's this layer doing its job. Same thing happens with awards. They turn a solid season into legacy material. Castle won Rookie of the Year, and suddenly, he's not just a young guy with potential, he's a household name. Evan Mobley gets Defensive Player of the Year, and people act like he's swatting shots into outer space. Dyson Daniels boosts his numbers and bags, most improved, and now he's all over highlight reels. It's not always about who's best, it's about who's visible. And visibility, that's where highlights take over. Trae Young making a half-court shot, that's dinner table conversation. Jokic stacking stats like it's a video game, straight to the top of every sports show. Even the games themselves get pushed through this lens. High-scoring shootouts and dramatic finishes become the only games that exist in the public's memory. And yeah, trades are part of that too. Luka moving to the Lakers, that wasn't just a trade, it was an earthquake. The memes, the reactions, the instant debates about fit and legacy. It's not just transactions, it's theater, but the script flips quick. One injury, and suddenly the narrative crashes. Anthony Davis barely sets foot on the floor in Dallas before he's out for the season. It's a twist that redefines the whole storyline. Same thing when guys miss stretches. Durant, Embiid, Morant. Their absences become part of the ongoing drama, and every update fuels more speculation. Then free agency kicks in, and things get louder. Klay Thompson joins the Mavericks, and suddenly that team has a whole new identity. Paul George signs with Philadelphia, and everyone's calculating how far they'll go. Even quieter moves, like Chris Paul signing with new squads, still set the tone, because fans plug every change into their fantasy of what's coming next. All-Star Weekend turns that fantasy into full-on spectacle. Mac McClung wins the dunk contest again, and now people treat him like a dunking deity. Tyler Hero shows out in the three-point contest, and boom, he's trending. Even the skills challenge gets buzzed when guys like Jared Allen and Cade Cunningham get involved. And the All-Star game, that's where players chase moments, not wins. LeBron hits a winner, and people pretend the whole season led to that shot. And let's not forget the tunnel fits. Fashion now stretches way beyond sneakers and jerseys. Shai shows up in reflective pants and a cycling jersey, and suddenly everyone's an NBA fashion critic. James Harden walks into the arena like he's attending Fashion Week. Booker flexes in Louis Vuitton. Giannis hits the Met Gala. These looks get reposted more than most game highlights. And for the public, it all counts as part of a player's performance. Speaking of performance, shoe deals crank the narrative engine into overdrive. Shai's Converse line, that cements him not just as a hooper, but a brand. Morant's Nike line, still going strong. Luka's Jordan shoe, flying off shelves. Devin Booker's Book 1 gets more colorways than some teams get wins. Sneakers now do as much to boost a player's profile as a buzzer beater. And all of this feeds into fantasy basketball. Jokic drops a triple-double, and managers are celebrating like they hit the lottery. Shai goes for 40, and fantasy scores light up. Even Anthony Davis, before his injury, delivers a massive stat line that turns a random Tuesday into a big deal. These performances turn players into assets beyond just the court. They're stock options in basketball form. That all leads right into the top 10 plays. It's the cherry-picked highlight factory that serves up the very best of the best. Whether it's Wemby going coast to coast or Tatum draining a contested three, these clips define how people remember the season. And when ESPN or the league slaps that #1 play label on something, it becomes canon. That moment lives longer than the game it came from. So yeah, the public sees layer is pure entertainment. It's curated, packaged, and sold across every platform. It's not about depth, it's about dopamine. The league knows it, the players know it, and fans consume it in bulk. Everything from fashion to fantasy to TikTok is part of it. If you're in this layer, you're not just playing basketball, you're starring in the never-ending NBA story. Non-casual ball knowers. This layer isn't for highlight hunters or fashion police. It's for those who stare at spreadsheets and rewind game film just to figure out why that corner three was open. This is where basketball gets dissected like a frog in a lab. You start with advanced stats. Jokic leads the league with a player efficiency rating of 32. which basically means he's operating like a basketball demigod. Shea's value over replacement player hits 8.9, proving he's not just good, he's pivotal. Giannis puts up a true shooting percentage of 61%, so when he shoots, the ball's basically asking to go in. Luka carries a usage percentage of 35.9, dragging his team's offense along like a wagon full of bricks. Then it moves to film study, where basketball nerds spend hours analyzing Halliburton's skip passes like they're ancient scrolls. He averages over 9 hit-ahead passes per game without even needing a dribble. Wemby, he's swatting nearly 4 shots a night from every corner of the floor, and analysts obsess over his defensive positioning. Curry's off-ball movement causes defensive meltdown, and LeBron's passing windows make people question their own depth perception. This is the chessboard, and every clip gets watched like it holds national secrets. Now it gets surgical with rotations and lineups. The Celtics throw out small ball units in crunch time, ditching traditional centers and trusting Tatum to cover ground. The Nuggets starters post a net rating of plus 30, so they're basically unbeatable when together. The Heat's zone defense isn't a one-size-fits-all, it's a shifting, swarming maze. And the Lakers plant Davis at center all game just to weaponize his shot blocking and rim protection. The salary cap side is its own twisted puzzle. The Suns took on Bradley Beal's expiring contract not because they love paperwork, but because it opens up future financial flexibility. And managing those cap sheets, that's a constant juggling act. Oklahoma City stayed under the first apron, giving them room to move in future seasons. The Clippers navigated the luxury tax like they were walking a tightrope, with Kawhi Leonard's paycheck balanced on their nose. The Knicks pulled off a sign and trade for OG and still kept their books in balance. Defense gets deep here too. The Heat run hybrid zones that morph mid-play, leaving offenses looking lost. The Celtics switch everything, turning defenders into interchangeable chess pieces. The Grizzlies throw elbows and pressure until you cough up the ball. The Spurs rely on their long arms and fast feet to clog lanes like a plumbing nightmare. Every player has a role, and the non-casual sees it. Josh Hart's a glue guy, doing everything that doesn't show up in box scores. Draymond Green orchestrates the Warriors' defense, while looking like he might yell at a referee at any moment. Andrew Nembhard's leadership is as loud as his hustle. Scouting reports tell stories before players ever get drafted. Scoot Henderson's mid-range game, a weakness on draft night. Wemby, he was already seen as a unicorn on both ends. Amen Thompson came in with raw athleticism and high upside. Brandon Miller's shooting made him a can't-miss sniper. Then you've got general managers playing long games. Sam Presti's out here hoarding draft picks like they're Pokemon cards. Daryl Morey chases stars like they're going extinct. Rob Pelinka tries to blend rookies and veterans into some kind of functional soup. Danny Ainge stacks assets for a rebuild that never seems to stop. Coaches come with lineage. Udoka learned from Pop, and you can see it in the grit and spacing. Budenholzer's style is basically Spurs, with more corner threes. Nick Nurse is inventing his own language out there. Steve Kerr's cooking up some triangle offense with a side of motion and misdirection. Development matters. Jalen Williams jumped in year 3 with a better scoring and decision-making. Tyrese Maxey turned into a star with improved shot selection and confidence. Dyson Daniels expanded his defensive bag and became a real threat. Analytics debates rage on. Some folks think EPM overvalues offense. Others question if BPM really captures defensive impact. There's a tug of war between the old heads and the stat heads. The stat raptor gets thrown into every debate like it's a political issue. Draft boards are war zones. Last year, Rissicher and Sarr sparked heated arguments over who'd go first. Reed Shepherd shot his way up the charts. International prospects always get compared to American ones, sometimes fairly, sometimes not. Load management, it's controversial, but calculated. Kawhi Leonard's barely touching back-to-back, so he's fresh in May. The league changed the rules to keep stars from resting every third game. Everyone analyzes how rest affects playoff impact, like they're reading tarot cards. Playbook deep dives are real. The Warriors' split actions make defenders dizzy. The Heat's horn set frees up Butler with surgical precision. The Nuggets' pick and roll with Jokic and Murray is basically a math equation that ends in points. The Celtics use motion offense like it's a symphony of backdoor cuts. Then there's the culture versus talent debate. The Heat swear by grit and grind. The Sixers trusted the process and got Embiid. The Spurs built a dynasty on discipline and long-term development. The Lakers just get stars and let gravity do the rest. Effort metrics tell a story too. Deflections show who's engaged on defense. Drawing charges takes guts, not just good feet. Contesting shots shows a willingness to challenge. Chasing loose balls, that's pure energy. And yeah, training regimens play a part. Giannis bulks up to play like a freight train. LeBron's recovery plan is practically science fiction. Curry's shooting drills make normal humans dizzy. Durant's yoga routine keeps him limber and out of the trainer's room. Body language gives everything away. Zion slumps when frustrated. Jimmy Butler looks bored and then drops 30. Westbrook's always on edge. Jokic stays calm and still dominates. Lineup chemistry rounds it out. The Nuggets starters work like a machine. The Warriors' death lineup once felt unstoppable. The Raptors' championship group played in perfect harmony. The Sixers duo only clicks when healthy, but when it does, it works. And if you're like me, the NBA offseason is your time to recharge. But while the games slow down, your goals shouldn't. That's why I've been using Factor. Factor makes it insanely easy to eat clean with meals that are ready in just 2 minutes. No chopping, no dishes, just heat and go. I've been crushing their spicy turkey poblano bowl and blackened salmon. They're legit restaurant quality. Every meal arrives fresh, never frozen, and it's all delivered straight to your door. So instead of wasting time in the kitchen, I've got more time to work, chill, or dive into free agency rumors. Factor has over 45 weekly meals to pick from. Whether you're all about protein plus, calorie smart, keto, or just want to eat better, they've got you covered. They've also got snacks, smoothies, breakfasts, and even desserts. It's everything you need to stay on point all day long. Get started at factormeals.com/modernjam50off and use code modernjam50off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. That's code modernjam50off at factormeals.com/modernjam50off for 50% off plus free shipping. Thank you to Factor for sponsoring. The Dark NBA. This layer isn't about buzzer beaters or award speeches. It's the stuff lurking behind the curtain, the quiet collapse of promising careers, and the headlines that come long after the applause fades. It starts with the blackballed. Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf refused to stand for the anthem, and that was enough to derail a career that once featured over 19 points a night. Craig Hodges delivered a letter to the president and never played another NBA minute, even with championship rings and a 40% clip from three. Cantor criticizes China, gets cut, and somehow no one needs a solid backup. Big. Allen Iverson, he averaged nearly 14 points in his last year and still couldn't land a starting role, sparking debates about whether teams wanted his baggage more than his buckets. And then the mental health struggle shows up, players cracking under pressure that doesn't show on the stat sheet. Larry Sanders left the game at 26, walking away from millions just to breathe. Kevin Love talks about panic attacks mid-game and helps break the silence. DeMar tweets about depression, and suddenly, more players start opening up. Royce White couldn't even fly, and with little support from the league, he vanished after 3 games. The physical tolls no less brutal. Yao Ming broke down from the feet up, forced into retirement before 31. Bill Walton had a Hall of Fame brain, trapped in a body that could barely keep up. Brandon Roy's knees gave out before anyone really understood how bad it was. Greg Oden was a number 1 pick, with the knees of someone 3 decades older. Some didn't even get to wear down. They ran into the wall of substance abuse. O.J. Mayo violated the anti-drug policy and got bounced for 2 years, never to return. Roy Tarpley was banned for life. Richard Dumas couldn't outrun cocaine, banned before his rookie season even started. Louis Lloyd's coke use in the 80s cost him his career, part of a darker era for the league. Inside locker rooms, not everyone got along. Bobby Portis punched Nikola Mirotic so hard it broke his jaw. Zach Randolph and Ruben Patterson came to blows, and Randolph never forgot it. Kevin Garnett and Marbury weren't just awkward teammates, they flat out fought. Rasheed Wallace and Jerry Stackhouse got into it behind closed doors, a clash of big personalities in a tight space. And for some, the game was taken away by more than just injuries. Jeremy Lin's role evaporated as fast as Linsanity began. Dwight Howard's beef with Stan Van Gundy ended with a trade and a legacy detour. Derrick Rose tore his ACL in garbage time, a decision people still blame on Tom Thibodeau. Allen Iverson and Larry Brown fought in public and in private, and the friction eventually snapped the bond. Legal issues turned stories from sports to headlines. Ben Gordon's post-career spiraled into arrests and mental health breakdown. Javaris Crittenton was convicted of voluntary manslaughter. His NBA chapter closed in a courtroom. Kobe Bryant's sexual assault charge altered how people saw him, even after the case was dropped. Allen Iverson had a rap sheet before his draft night, and legal trouble stayed close throughout. Coach-player feuds broke chemistry and careers. Brandon Jennings and Scott Skiles couldn't make it work, and Jennings was traded. Latrell Sprewell choked P.J. Carlesimo, literally, and got suspended for nearly a full season. Rajon Rondo clashed with Rick Carlisle, then got benched in the playoffs and never looked back. Shaq once called Stan Van Gundy a master of panic, which went about as well as expected. Then come the accidents, the moments no one can predict or prevent. Eddie Griffin drove into a train while drunk. Fernando Martin died young in a car crash. Drazen was gone in an instant. his prime stolen on a German highway. Bobby Phills lost control of his Porsche racing a teammate, and the Hornets lost one of their own. Depression has taken its shots too. Ben Gordon wrote about suicidal thoughts in brutal detail. John Wall revealed how close he came to ending it all. Kevin Love shared about his darkest moments and made space for others. DeMar opened the floodgates with just a few honest words. Public meltdowns often turn players into memes instead of men. Kwame Brown's social media tirades were fueled by years of criticism. Russell Westbrook lashed out at reporters and fans alike. Draymond Green punched a teammate on camera, because why not make it viral? Sprewell's moment with Carlesimo was as public as it was permanent. Some draft picks are just cursed. Greg Oden never had a chance. Anthony Bennett averaged fewer than 5 points. Hasheem Thabeet looked lost from the jump. Darko got overshadowed by 3 future Hall of Famers taken right after him. Others died before they could fix it. Reggie Lewis collapsed in a gym. Hank Gathers collapsed mid-game. Len Bias never made it out of college. Drazen, again, one of the biggest what-ifs in basketball history. Even after the buzzer, the game can haunt you. Delonte West went from the league to the streets. Joe Smith burned through $60 million. Antoine Walker blew over $100 million, and his championship ring didn't help. Sprewell had his yacht repossessed. These aren't cautionary tales, they're post-game reports. And then burnout takes over. Roy Hibbert was an all-star 1 minute and irrelevant the next. Carmelo Anthony couldn't even get a call in 2018. Wade's body broke down before his will did. Allen Iverson went from MVP to overseas in less than a decade. This is the layer that no one posts on TikTok. The layer with no highlight reel, just lives, real ones, unraveling behind the scoreboard. What the NBA avoids. This layer is where things get squirmy. Not because it's complicated, but because the league seems to prefer we just don't talk about any of it. From games that fans say felt suspiciously tilted, to international partners with questionable records. This is where the bright lights start to flicker. Start with the rigged suspicion games. Moments where the outcomes felt a little too convenient. That Game 6 between the Kings and Lakers, people still call it the blueprint for how to make sure a series goes 7. Larry Bird once hinted that the league nudged referees for big market wins back in 1984. Add in the Tim Donaghy betting mess in 07, and trust and fairness takes a nosedive. It's not just the Donaghy games either. Fans keep receipts on games that looked more theater than sport. International relations are where the NBA starts sweating through its suit. After Daryl Morey tweeted support for Hong Kong, China blacked out NBA broadcasts. The league, it ducked. Hosting games in Abu Dhabi raised sports washing flags, with critics asking how human rights got left off the itinerary. They pulled business from Russia during the Ukraine invasion, but many saw that as reactive. Through all of it, the NBA's biggest concern seemed less about ethics and more about not making the next quarterly earnings call awkward. Failed markets are the quiet heartbreaks. Vancouver had a team, past tense. So did Seattle. The Grizzlies moved and the Supersonics were reborn as the Thunder. The Charlotte Hornets did their own weird market shuffle and came back wearing different clothes. Kansas City, gone before many current fans were even born. These exits always sound like financial necessity, but fans here, you weren't profitable enough. Media protectionism is the layer where coverage becomes curation. LeBron James's decisions, literal and metaphorical, rarely get the same heat a lesser-known player would face. Kobe Bryant's legal battle didn't even interrupt his playing time. Allen Iverson got his off-court drama filtered through highlight reels. Michael Jordan's gambling? We don't talk about that. Not if we want the Air Jordan myth to stay pristine. It's star-making through selective editing. Referee bias might be the oldest conspiracy theory still walking. Scott Foster officiates a Chris Paul game. Fans already know the result. Joey Crawford's name alone sends some into flashbacks of tech-happy disasters. There's real data too. Home teams get more favorable whistles, and stars get calls role players dream about. Studies even pointed to racial bias in officiating years ago. But somehow, the league's stance is always nothing to see here. Doping avoidance is subtle, but loud. No testing for human growth hormone, no blood doping protocols like other leagues. Random marijuana testing? Suspended. The NBA has had suspiciously few major performance-enhancing drug scandals, which some fans attribute more to testing gaps than athlete purity. But as long as the dunks are thunderous and the body's shredded, who's checking the sample cups? Superstar privilege isn't a secret, it's just awkward. Suppressed injuries are another favorite. Kawhi Leonard's long-standing beef with the Spurs over medical diagnosis didn't exactly stay in the press releases. Derrick Rose's knee saga had people wondering if the Bulls forced the issue. Teams regularly downplay severity to keep trade values intact. Some fans argue players get treated like assets, not humans with Tanking is the league's dirty little efficiency trick. Oklahoma City benches half the team for vague injuries? Sure, the Sixers turned it into a full-blown brand with the process. Even the Suns had their own tank and draft moment for DeAndre Ayton. Fans know when a team's losing on purpose, and it's not charm. Cover-ups are where everything turns PR. The COVID bubble was hailed as a success, but reports of hidden positive tests raised questions. The Donaghy scandal never got a full investigation, or at least not one that satisfied fans. Donald Sterling got bounced, but the rot in ownership culture barely got acknowledged. The pattern is clear. React fast, say little, move on. Nepotism in coaching and front offices isn't even subtle. Doc Rivers' son got more rope than most role players. Mike Malone and Ryan Saunders have famous NBA dads. Ryan West works in front offices because of course he does. Fans don't hate the hires, they just hate that some people never had to earn their way up the same ladder. Ownership conflicts are their own soap opera. Donald Sterling was a villain decades before his tapes leaked. Mark Cuban's public comments get him into trouble almost monthly. James Dolan runs the Knicks like a moody nightclub bouncer. These guys shape franchises, and often not in a good way. The legal shield? That's the NBA's invisible wall. Mark Jackson's exit got quietly swept under the rug. The Donaghy scandal never reached courtroom. Sterling was removed fast, but the process wasn't exactly transparent. The league flipped on sports betting when it became profitable, turning moral stances into legal loopholes. Banned stories round it all out. Tim Donaghy's name never shows up on official broadcasts. Drug testing gaps go largely uncovered. The NBA knows what not to say, and the media usually plays along. That's how this layer stays so well hidden. It's not what's on the screen, it's what never gets there. The NBA theories. The theories layer lives in whispers, tweet threads, and late-night forums. Nothing's confirmed, but speculation thrives. Every odd outcome, media silence, or league move stokes a new conspiracy. Patrick Ewing. Draft rigging has fans convinced the lottery was fixed so the Knicks could draft Ewing. The frozen envelope rumor claims David Stern picked the Knicks envelope by feel. A creased or chilled envelope theory fuels the myth. Stern's denials don't quiet the crowd. And when Dallas wins a low odds pick, decades later, the chatter resurfaces. LeBron got Blatt fired suggests James influenced Cleveland's decision to fire coach David Blatt in 2016. Blatt went 30-11 before being replaced by Tyronn Lue, a coach more aligned with James. A playoff timeout, overruling by James, adds fuel. Analysts split. Some see power play, others call it basketball fit. NBA scripted finals outcomes has fans believing certain finals were orchestrated. Kobe's 2010 redemption arc over Boston feels two-storybook perfect. LeBron's comeback in 2016, the Lakers' 2001 dominant run, Jordan's clutch Hollywood send-off in 1998, each fits a narrative arc too tidy to ignore. Dennis Smith, torpedoed for Luka, claims Dallas deliberately sidelined Smith after drafting Luka in 2019 to drive him off a trade deal. His eventual trade to New York felt less like sport and more like strategy, fueling the idea Dallas wanted to optimize the Luka focus above all else. Ref bias, as strategy paints Scott Foster as the extender. Heat fans claim he extended Miami's playoff runs with favorable calls. Chris Paul's 13-game losing streak with Foster on the whistle intensifies suspicion. Even a Knicks-Pacers game in 2025 drew heat over his calls, yet coaches often defend Foster's integrity, calling bias theories hype. Media-driven MVP theory says Russell Westbrook's 2016-17 MVP wasn't about wins, but narrative and triple-double stat chasing. Harden and Leonard had superior team records, yet Westbrook's line-dominated stories. Fans argue media storytelling overrode team success in that vote. Suspicious trade blocks reference the 2011 Chris Paul Lakers deal, vetoed for basketball reasons. Many assume it was a power play to prevent a super team. Owners publicly opposed it under the guise of small market protection, but critics thought it was league interference at work. Intentional tanking. Orders theorizes Adam Silver uses coded language like compete to signal teams to subtly tank. In 2018, he wrote a memo against tanking, but later backed tax reforms that disguise anti-tank rules. When Dallas benched players to protect lottery odds, some fans pointed to fitting script over coincidence. Jordan's first retirement theory says his 1993 retirement was a cover-up for a gambling punishment. Stern supposedly allowed Jordan to retire instead of face suspension. His minor league baseball detour seems too convenient for skeptics. Secret injuries. Never reported says star injuries get minimized. Curry's 2022 finals. Foot sprain encountered speculation that full truth was withheld to preserve image. Though public statements were consistent, suspicion survives. Clutch sports power theory about clutch sports, especially Rich Paul, argues his agency weaves narrative and trade power through star clients like LeBron and Anthony Davis. Davis's Lakers move, and Zion's career handling raise questions, though nothing is concrete. NBA sends suspension messages, refers to Kyrie's 2022 suspension over anti-Semitic video posting. Some felt the NBA used his punishment to broadcast what language crosses the line. Critics say it was rights suppression. Defenders argue it was league principle. Public perceptions of these theories vary. Die-hard fans and Reddit analysts may take them seriously as plausible explanations, while the broader public often dismisses them as speculation. Most involve a high-stakes event, star influence, or sudden pivot. They persist because the NBA is both a public entertainment brand and a protected corporate entity, with every word and action perceived as calculated. But none of these are proven. They persist due to the league's opacity, celebrity power, and fan hunger for meaning behind chaos. They reflect distrust of institutions and the power of narrative framing over fact. In this layer, nothing is accepted at face value. Every coach firing, every final series, every draft lottery becomes a potential chapter in a deeper story. And despite no smoking gun, the conspiracies don't fade. They evolve with each shakeup, each big trade, each unexplained league statement. Because in a universe where a game can be worth billions, fans will always wonder, what did they plan? Who's running the show? And where's the real basketball buried behind the script? The NBA mythology. The mythology layer brims with legendary moments that feel larger than sport. Iconic stories woven into public imagination and cultural lore. These events aren't just stats. They're part of the NBA's folklore, carrying weight far beyond the court. MJ flu game set the tone in 1997. Jordan battled what was reported as food poisoning or flu, but still dropped 38 points and nailed the go-ahead three in the finals. It became a symbol of sheer will. Fans still debate exactly what he fought through, but the legend stands. Sneakers he wore sold for over $1 million, and the term flu game is still shorthand for overcoming adversity in style. Ray Allen's shot saved a dynasty in 2013. With 5 seconds to go in Game 6 of the finals, Allen buried a three that tied the game and swung momentum. What felt like a last-stand moment is remembered as the hinge of LeBron's legacy, a shot replayed in endless highlight loops and discussed as possibly preventing a repeat defeat. Kobe's 81 came in 2006. Bryant exploded for 81 points against the Raptors, the second highest single-game total in league history. It's viewed as transcendent scoring at its peak, proof that Kobe could outshine nearly anyone under the bright lights. Fans place that performance just behind Chamberlain's 100, a modern marvel of willpower and skill. Dirk's 2011 run stands out as fundamentals beating flash. Nowitzki and Dallas swept aside Miami's talent-rich squad, showing chemistry and grit can topple star power. The underdog narrative still resonates. One team pulling off a feat others call impossible, with no superstars doing score-heavy heroics. Vince Carter's dunk contest in 2000 changed perceptions of athleticism. His between the legs and 360 dunks punched new air in the contest's history. Carter is credited with redefining dunk creativity. Kids grew up chasing that level of flair, and fans still point to him as the moment culture shifted. Iverson's step over in 2001 may look small, but it's huge culturally. After that crossover on Tyronn Lue in the finals, Iverson paused, stepped over Lue, and dared anyone to challenge him. It became a symbol of underdog defiance and swagger, and remains a go-to clip when speaking about fearless basketball statements. Linsanity erupted in 2012. Jeremy Lin went from undrafted, invisible, to global sensation in days, leading the Knicks on a surprise winning streak. That moment stands for hope, perseverance, and breaking barriers. His ride was short, but mythology says some bursts matter more than long-term careers. Kevin Garnett's title cry in 2008 captured raw emotion. After capturing the championship, Garnett yelled, "Anything is possible," during the locker room celebration. It transformed into a rallying cry, symbolizing gritty belief and emotional release when underdogs finally win. The block from 2016 defines defensive legacy. In Game 7, LeBron swatted away Iggy's layup attempt, momentarily pausing the game right before Cleveland wrapped up its first title. Fans call it one of the most clutch defensive plays ever and see it as a defining moment of his career. Steph's revolution is an ongoing tale. Curry's long-range shooting shifted how basketball is played, making half-court shots seem reasonable. Young athletes now emulate his style, and teams chase his spacing model. The game itself changed around him. Russ's triple-doubles in recent seasons revived old records and stirred debate. Westbrook, averaging a triple-double again decades after Oscar Robertson did it, felt mythical. A return of statistical dominance. Fans argue about its impact, but they agree it's rare and thrilling. Kobe's 60-point farewell closed his career perfectly in 2016. Bryant scored 60 in his final outing, leading the Lakers to win. It read like a screenplay ending. Spectacular and fitting for a legend. Fans remember it as a perfect ending to a storied act. The decision in 2010 disrupted the NBA blueprint. LeBron's televised announcement of joining Miami created shockwave. Some saw betrayal, others professionalism. It arguably sparked the current era of player-driven super teams, making personal branding and power front and center. Shaq and Penny's breakup remains a what if. Their early run at Orlando went quiet after Shaq demanded a trade following Cinderella finals in '95. That potential dynasty gone wild is still lamented as the year basketball lost a heavy-hit duo. Malice at the Palace in 2004 broke boundaries. It ended careers, redefined security protocol, and entered collective memory as a scene too intense to ignore. Each of these legends is kept alive by how fans tell them, stories passed down, clips relived, words that entered the basketball lexicon. Some focus on mounted heroics, others on raw emotion or cultural reverberation. They're not always about championships. Some are momentary, an arc, a move, a fight, but each earned its place because it shapes identity, pride, and memory. They shine brightest where simple statistics fade into mythic resonance. Deep core. This is the metaphysical layer of basketball, where stats step aside and emotions step in. It's where the game stops being just a sport and becomes something people live through. For some fans, it's the soundtrack to their lives, a source of identity that can't be stolen or sold. They turn to basketball, not just for entertainment, but for escape. In cities and small towns, in loud arenas and quiet living rooms, the game becomes therapy, tradition, and a weirdly personal kind of hope. Especially in communities that have been historically marginalized, basketball carries pride and purpose. You can feel that weight in every bounce of the ball. Legacy versus humanity. Chasing immortality isn't all champagne and confetti. Michael Jordan showed what it costs when you pick legacy over people. He might be the best to ever do it, but it came with teammate trauma, locker room conflict, and a rep for steamrolling friendships. Punching teammates in practice or calling them losers wasn't motivational, it was collateral damage. His obsession with dominance came at the expense of empathy, and that's a debate fans still haven't settled. The burden of genius. Kobe Bryant lived on a different planet. At 17, while others went to prom, he was skipping parties and wandering college campuses just to feel a piece of normal. That isolation fueled greatness, but it also painted him into a lonely corner. His wedding didn't even include teammates. Imagine that. All that focus made him a legend, but it left little room for connection. It's inspiring and kinda heartbreaking. The ghosts of the game. Final moments follow you forever. Some players get cinematic exits that fans replay on loop, while others are haunted by their worst nights. You can be a champion and still lose sleep over a missed shot. Fans remember the highs and the lows, and sometimes it doesn't matter what happened before. One moment can define an entire legacy. Basketball as religion. Madison Square Garden isn't just an arena, it's a shrine. Fans walk in like they're entering a cathedral, and for good reason. The lights, the history, the noise, it's all sacred. For some, it's worth traveling across the country and spending months of savings. This isn't just fandom, it's faith. And MSG, it's where believers go to feel something. The price of immortality. LeBron James has been fighting Father Time with science and discipline, but the toll is showing. Triple doubles at 39 are still impressive, but there's no ignoring the creeping inefficiencies. His training costs more than some people make in a year, all just to keep up with a body that refuses to ignore the calendar. The obsession to matter. Allen Iverson cared more about loyalty than jewelry. He carried teams on his back and never chased a ring. That choice made him beloved, but it also left a gap in his resume. Fans respect the authenticity, but they still argue about what really defines greatness. And in that conversation, every angle, every contradiction, every sacrifice, it all lives in the deep core. If you enjoyed this, I'm going to be posting a lot here. I would greatly appreciate it if you could subscribe. Thanks for watching.